Okay, so if you've come to this video by looking at the ADSB Flight Tracker Lite flight safety video I did, this is roughly what you can expect to see when you first fire it up. What I'm going to do now is just take you through the selections of how to get to what I have set up, so then it will look like what I've got. Obviously you can make any adaptations that you want to after that. So starting from this display, the first thing you're going to do is press the menu button. From menu, you're going to go down into the radar profiles. From radar profiles, you are going to select one that's called Mic 1. So that will immediately get you a display like the one that we had in the last video. Now from there, if you want to, you can make your own changes. So if you go into, again, back into menu, back into radar profiles, what you can do here is you can clone this one if you want to by pressing the clone button, save it as your own, and then that will open up the option for you to edit your own profile. So if you want to make any additional changes over and above what you've got with mine, you can do that. And then that way, if you want to revert back to the Mic 1 profile that is currently set up on, you'll be able to do that quite easily too. We're just going to leave it with Mic 1 for the moment. So I didn't show you any of this before, so I'll just take you through it now. So top left hand corner, you've got the filters. So at the moment that's showing you that you've got aircraft will only be shown if they're between 0 and 6,000 feet, and that the radar profile that you're using is called Mic. Bottom left, you'll see that proximity is set up, so that's giving you a 5 kilometers, anything within 10,000 feet height difference, and there's a perimeter set up of 300 meters, so it won't show you anything that's within 300 meters of you. So other things to look for are the menu button obviously just takes you to the whole variety of menu options. The next button goes to full screen or not full screen. The GPS button, if you press it twice in quick succession, it takes you into the airborne mode, as I call it, or the real-time GPS mode as it's known on this device. Press it again in quick succession and it takes you back. I don't use 3D mode, so the north button will toggle you through 3 different north modes. I'll let you work those ones out for yourself. But the thing to remember is if you're in the real-time GPS mode, it just uses the GPS from your device. At the bottom, you've got zoom in and zoom out buttons. You've also got the fast option, so that basically increases your data rate when you're downloading the information. The mute button turns on and off the audio, and then the blip button colors it. So you remember from my last video that I have green, yellow or blue, depending on whether it's descending, level or climbing. If you want, you can just press the blip button and they'll all show in the same color, or they'll show according to whether they're climbing, descending or level. So to get into the mode that you're wanting to get into, so to get into the flight mode, press this button first of all to maximize it. You double press on the GPS button. That then provides an aircraft, so you know that you are definitely in the right mode, and then press anywhere on the screen and it will then take you to the clearest mode. And then I just use my fingers to zoom in, and that is roughly what you're looking for when you want to go flying. So I'll just take you through some of the options that you can select. So back in via the menu button. So looking from top to bottom, so proximity, the one that we've just been talking about. So you'll see there that my settings are, it's active, which is why I've got the yellow line. It shows me the proximity ring. I can turn that on and off, and I can also mute the sound either from here or from the main display that we saw before by pressing the mute button. This will show me anything within 5 kilometers, 10,000 feet, but with that 300 meter perimeter that we were discussing before. If I go into real-time GPS, so I've got real-time GPS running at the moment. I've got my update interval set to 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds. That's a really nicely damped way of providing subtle changes to heading. It will still bring you the accurate heading up, but it won't be swinging around quite so violently. I've got it set to show heading and also to show the airplane symbol. You can also show your speed, your altitude and your VSI if you want to as well. So you remember from the last video, sometimes I had the speed and the altitude shown, sometimes I didn't. So in the 2D settings, I turn the coastlines on and also have the ability to color the blips. in 2D radar. So I've got the rings turned on, so that's the 3.3 kilometer rings that I have, the white dashed ones, with the outside one being about 10 kilometers, just to provide me with some SA. Runway perimeters, so that shows me in green the outlines of the local runways. If I want to see a photo of the aircraft, so if I click on an aircraft and I want to see a photo of it, then I have that selected. So I do that at the moment, but you can turn that on or off depending on how much of your display you want to be taking up with it. And then for radar history, so this is deselected for the moment, but if you select it, that will then show you a radar history of where the aircraft you're looking at have been. So in view mode, you have some more selections there. So I've turned on my ground traffic because I'd like to see aircraft if they're on the ground and they're transmitting. And I've also turned on the multiple plane select. So if you've got two aircraft that are close to each other and you select and the phone doesn't know which one you want, it will give you the options to select which one comes up from that. So if you go into flight filters, the only filter I have is the altitude one. So I've currently got it turned on so that it only shows me aircraft between 0 and 6,000 feet. Now that's different to the proximity alert that we've just seen. So this will only show me aircraft that are between 0 and 6,000 feet. There are other flight filters. I'll let you go through those and work out which ones you want to enable. So this is how you select or deselect the different labels that are available to you. So the runway center line is the one that shows you where the ILS, the instrument approach lane, is for each of the runways. It's just a good way of providing additional information about the runways. Units, so I set all of mine to kilometers except for altitude, which I set to feet. You can go through and change yours to your preference. Now for radar labels, you'll see that you've got up to 9 radar labels you can have for an aircraft that's flying, and up to 9 you can have for an aircraft that's on the ground. So I've got mine at the moment set to GPS distance, so that's the distance between me and the aircraft, and I've also got it set to speed, so that is the aircraft's ground speed. They're the only 2 bits of information I'm looking at the moment. You'll be able to see though that you've got a whole range of different options that you can select to add additional information to any of those, but bear in mind that the more information you put on there, the more cluttered your display is going to be. For boundaries, so you can select the different airspaces depending on where you're flying. I've set mine up, but I would never use this as a primary means of navigation. So although I've got Bournemouth, Southampton and Bristol, for example, I wouldn't rely on that information to keep me out of those airspace. I still need to do normal navigation. Another one to bear in mind is that you can turn on and off the danger areas. So I'll bring the danger area up now to show you the difference. But the thing to bear in mind with all of this information is I'm not entirely sure how up to date it is and how accurate it is. So I treat it all with a pinch of salt. And you can see there that the red areas are now showing that previously weren't showing. And then the final one in terms of settings is this settings one. So for radar rings, I've got those are the 3 that are set up at 3.3 nautical miles. So I'll just make sure that is set. So that's 3.3. You can also set up various other options at the top as well. I will let you go in and choose any of those that you want to do. So now I'm going to take you through how you set up any color changes that you want. So you remember at the start I showed you how when you go into radar profiles, you can clone and you can select. So I've already cloned a version of mic 1, so I'm going to select that now. So this is now mic 2, and what I'll show you is when you go into radar profiles and you go to edit, this now gives you all of the additional changes you can make for different color coding and different color schemes. So I'll just take you through what I've got set up on mine now. So the important ones here are you've got climbing, descending. So that's how you change if you want to have different colors for an aircraft that's climbing or descending. for future, so you can set either a solid line or no line, and that's where you set how long you want it to be depending on what time frame you want to have associated with it. And then in terms of my radar colours, these are all the different colours that I've got selected. And it really does give you the opportunity of optimizing it for exactly what you want it to be like. So that's how you set it up if you want the same display that I've got. I've taken you through some of the more important ones that you may or may not choose to use. It's completely up to you how you set yours up, obviously. All I would say is that based on my previous working experience with it, the display that you can see here is by far the simplest and the cleanest. If you fly with it in this mode, you don't need to touch anything unless you want to click on an aircraft to get more information about it. And if you accidentally scroll away from it, the 2 seconds that we were talking about before means that the aircraft comes back to your centered position. So this is how I fly with mine, and then that gives me by far the clearest view possible that I could want.